Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of I'm That Geek Show, the only show that puts you face to face with the experts in real time and lets you ask them anything you want about your life, your business, your relationship, and your health. And today we are talking about storytelling. Specifically, if you have a message that the world needs to hear, this is the place for you, because today we are going to discuss how you can communicate your story and turn that into clients, booking, speaking engagements, and everything else that you need to do with stories. Me personally, how do I talk to my son? Right? So to do that, we have with us an international award-winning keynote speaker, Mr. Clinton Young. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Ifat?
Fantastic. So Clinton and I have met in a mastermind, and I was just fascinated by his storytelling abilities and the way that he can connect with the audience once he takes the stage. But more than that, Clinton and I had a little conversation on Facebook on Simon Sinek's, one of his posts. Do you remember what it was? Like, how do we get into that?
Yeah, somebody posted about Simon, so we won't say that it was him, but they were talking about a piece of advice that Simon shared that I actually disagreed with. I don't know if you want me to share what that is.
Yeah. Let's do that. Controversy is always fantastic, right?
So I love Simon, all right? I love
too.
Simon. He is the man. However, I feel like he gave a piece of advice that was absolutely like backwards to what I would say as a world-class keynote speaker would do. And he says, when you're delivering your speech, to speak as slowly as you possibly can for the entire speech. And although I totally agree with, using the power of the pause and, varying your tonality and your speed, going the same speed the whole time, that is like, I would never do that in a speech, ever, ever, ever. So I totally disagreed with what he said.
Totally. And you know what? I love that you say that, because I too love Simon Sinek, but there are different things that I disagree with as well. One of the things that I do love that he says is, I can't believe I'm getting paid to say the obvious. Right? So this is part of what we're doing here as well. Nobody likes monotone, and nobody likes a chain, like what do you call that, a fast train either. And so this is something that I am really excited about learning from you, Clinton, is how do you deliver a good speech? How do you communicate your points? And how do you do that in a way that doesn't lose the audience, whether on stage and on live video? So guys, if you want to get your questions answered and kind of like hone on your message and your speech as well, the place to be is imthatgeek.com/live. Right here. Hop on over. You can click the button below, jump on in, and have a conversation with us so you too can become a master storyteller. Now, before we dive, you have like 7 tips that people can grab and actually improve their story in real time. And guys, you can find that right here. We're going to discuss 3 of them today. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about storytelling, right? Because a lot of people are talking at how we don't have attention spans anymore. And the feeling is that you should have storytelling, but very, very short. And I remember someone said, if I had more time, I would write less, right? I would say it in less words, something like that. So how do you, is there any kind of a format or something like that where you can communicate online and on stage? And granted, on stage you have more time, right? You have like 90 minutes, 60 minutes, 30 minutes. Yeah. But when you're online and you're trying to communicate, you don't really know how long people will stick around. So how do you use storytelling to capture attention in the age of short attention spans, live video, everything like immediate gratification?
Yeah, great question, Ifat. And, it's crazy. We literally, as humans, have an 8-second attention span. It's gone down over the last several years with all of the things out there that are grabbing our attention. 8 seconds. Do you know how long a goldfish attention span is?
I do actually. 7, right? 7 and a half, right?
I think it's actually a little bit longer.
Oh, really? 8 seconds?
My last Google search was 8-second human, and I believe goldfish was 9 or 10 seconds.
Yikes.
That's bananas. That is crazy. So coming back to what Simon said, and it feeds really nicely into storytelling as well, is the biggest thing that we need to do when somebody has an 8-second attention span, we need to, first of all, earn the right to get their attention right out of the gate.
Yep.
And then every 8 to 10 seconds, we need to be doing something that gets their attention again. We need to continue to earn the right to maintain their attention. And that's why I so vehemently disagree with what Simon says about speaking slowly the entire speech, because the number one thing that we need as a storyteller is we need contrast, right? You might write that down. If anyone's taking notes, you need contrast, right? That's the thing, among many other things, all of my tips feed into needing to have contrast when we're speaking. So yeah, we want to tell stories, and we also want to have some facts. We also want to vary our tonality. We want to vary our speed. We want to vary our pitch, right? We want to pause once in a while. We want to vary our excitement level. There's so many different ways that you can add contrast into your speech. And when you're telling stories, it's so vital as well. As far as the percentage of stories that I like to tell, and I recommend the folks that I train, I like to say about 70% story and about 30% facts. Because there's always going to be people in the room that need data, they need facts, and it's always good to have great information, obviously. But the number one cardinal rule about telling stories that you don't want to commit this sin, if you will, is you don't just tell stories for the sake of telling stories.
Yeah.
Stories always have to have a point, right?
Totally. So I love what you said that, because when you said contrast, the first thing that popped into my head was let's disagree with someone. And that's not really what you're talking about, right? You're talking about contrast in terms of like how fast do you talk, pauses and stuff, not necessarily the content of the story.
Yeah, it's more about variation, right? You want to vary. If you think about, if everybody visualizes right now like a seesaw, when we were little kids, you're on the seesaw and you're going up and down and up and down. And you always want to have your audience moving. You want to have them moving from inspiration, where they're like moved to tears, all the way to they're like belly laughing, right? You want to, and then you want to have facts in the middle where they're really serious and they're really focused in. You want to have them writing things. You want to have them listening. You want to have them watching things. You want to have them writing stuff down, right? Giving verbal commands like write that down. I already did that earlier.
Yeah.
Right? So we want to continue to have variation. And I actually I'm always hiring the top coaches out there, the top speakers out there. I'm a believer in continuous and forever expansion and growth. And I literally hired another world-class speaker who happens to also be a professional stand-up comedian. And I said, you know what, watch my speech, give me some pointers. And he gave me some amazing things that I've infused into my speech. But one of the things he shared, it was one of those principles, right? Some of the things that I'm about to share with you and that I share in my top 7 tips, I've literally paid $5,000 for like one of the tips, just one of the tips. Right? So I'm giving some of those here for free, obviously. But what he said to me was a principle, and that's usually the thing that's worth the $5,000. You get that principle. It's not just a tactic or a little thing you can throw in your speech. It's actually a principle that now gives you a whole new lens through which to see all of your speeches for the rest of your career and the rest of your life, right? That's transformation. And what this comedian said to me, this professional comedian, he said, you've got to have a left hook. And what he means by that, you know, left hook like in boxing, he says, you never, ever, ever want to have your audience be able to predict what you're going to say next, right? Left hooks are notorious for kind of coming out of the blue, like you don't see them coming. So that was one of the biggest principles that I got out of paying that particular coach around contrast, and specifically as it comes to humor and your content. You never want them to be able to know what's coming next. So keep them on that seesaw.
So I love that you said that because you're actually posing a challenge for all of us. And it's in what is my left hook, right? And how good I can become, throwing that hook. How often should I throw that hook? And do people always kind of like expect me to surprise them? What if I can surprise them, right? So that kind of, to me, falls into how do you craft your story? And it makes me feel like this is unique to every person, right? There's not kind of like, okay, the first thing that you should have in a headline is, I don't know, call to action, surprise, a joke, or something, right? So, is there a way that you can take people through crafting their own story, but it doesn't sound very templated, if you will?
So that's a great question. And I want to add in, before I answer that, I want to add in one piece here. I want to add in this thing that you're going to want to write this down. This is actually one of the tips. And it's facts tell, stories sell.
Yep.
Right? Obviously, we're talking about storytelling right now, so that's a very obvious statement, but maybe you've never heard that, maybe you have. Facts tell and stories sell. If you want to inspire somebody, if you want to move somebody emotionally, if you want to have somebody feel something that you feel, or you want them to just have clarity and be inspired about their life, or you want to get them to do something that's in their best interest to do to overcome their limiting beliefs, you've got to tell stories.
Yeah.
Bottom line, you absolutely have to tell stories. And without working with you one-on-one, I can't really say, this is how you tell your story, right? But what I did is I hired a coach. I literally hired a National Speaker Association Hall of Fame speaker. If you don't know, the National Speakers Association is kind of la creme de la creme. It's the highest level association in the US, and people from all around the world come to these events as well. I'm actually going to Denver in July to their national event. And there's a Hall of Fame. There's only about 150 people in the entire Hall of Fame. And I plan to be in that Hall of Fame as well in the future. But I hired this gentleman, and we literally spent time together, and I just shared all the stories of the significant times in my life when things really shifted. So what I would give to you, to your viewers, as advice for I'm That Geek is, really think about what are those pivotal moments in your life. Because a lot of times the pain that you've experienced in your life can a lot of times be the thing that can set other people free, right? You've gone through exactly what you've gone through in your life for a reason. I'm a firm believer that everything always happens for a reason. And, there's always something to learn and grow from. And we all have a story inside of us, right?
Totally, yeah.
So go back to all those moments and start to think about, what was the thing that you learned? And then start to share that story. And there's a great way to do that. If your viewers have not heard of Toastmasters, a lot of people have heard of Toastmasters.
Yep.
If you haven't, Google it. Toastmasters, it's an international organization, and it has its drawbacks, right? Because there's not world-class speakers that are going to be in there that are getting paid $10,000 and $20,000 typically. There's one or two. I go to a few events once in a while. I speak there just to kind of give back now, but I cut my teeth and really got started in Toastmasters. I'd obviously had a lot of experience getting on stages, maybe that's not so obvious, but I use Toastmasters as sort of my dojo, right? This is a great place where you can go, my dojo or my gym, where they're gonna teach you how to build a 5 to 7 minute speech. Super easy, a lot of different types of speeches. So I highly, highly recommend checking out Toastmasters if you want to start to have a place where you can actually practice and you can structure a 5 to 7 minute speech and then go and deliver it.
I love that.
And then another 5 minute speech, 7 minute speech, and go and deliver it as well.
I love that because a lot of us, and one of the reasons why I'm creating a community is because a lot of people get tons of information and get connected to amazing ideas and amazing people and never take action. So the first thing that you guys want to do is, if you want to become a better storyteller, whether it's online, whether it's actually speaking, whether it's, with your kids, relationships, anything else, if you want to become a better storyteller or a communicator, I think Toastmasters is free, isn't it? Or something very, very low.
So yeah, you can go to Toastmasters in your area. And this is how I recommend you. I'm going to give you a game plan here. So you might want to write down these steps. I would literally go to Toastmasters, and you can search in your area. It has a very good search capacity where you can look at all the Toastmasters in your area. There's usually several in every town, every city, all around the world. Lots of the major cities are going to have tons of them. I would go and visit every single one in your city that meets at a time that works for you, because all of them have different flavors, different feels, different setups. They have ultimately the same structure and the same guidelines, but they all have a different sort of culture, if you will.
Yeah.
And you can go for free to all of them once or twice. You could literally do that for the next 6 months and probably go for free, all these different ones. Now, you won't be able to necessarily participate at the level of getting the actual, booklet. Now they do it all online, but getting that and being able to participate in the speeches. But you will be able to participate in a lot of the other elements of the event, which are things like table topics, where it's impromptu speaking. And whether you're somebody who speaks online or wants to speak online, or whether you want to speak on a stage or even one-to-one, that sort of, I use the word dojo in gym a lot when I talk about that, because the number one thing that you need to do to get better as a storyteller is to start to tell stories. Right? Start to tell stories. And the only reason why I say Toastmasters is because it has a structure that you don't need to go and figure it out and like start from scratch. It has a structure that you can go and utilize. But I want to give your audience one additional tip that I wasn't planning on giving today. Is that okay, Yvette?
I would love to. I know they would too.
Yeah, I'm feeding in a lot of different things that wasn't planned right now. But basically, in Toastmasters or any speech organization, you're typically going to spend about 80% of your overall time creating your speech. Mm-hmm. And then how long did I say the speech was? 5 to 7 minutes, right? Yep. So you go and you deliver your speech for 5 to 7 minutes, but you took 5 to 7 hours to create the speech. So it's like a 90-10 ratio. 90% of the time you spent creating the speech, 10% of the time you spent delivering the speech. One of the biggest mistakes I see new speakers make is they don't think outside of the box around utilizing that structure called Toastmasters as a dojo, as a gym, and they just follow it exactly how they say. This is where Toastmasters maybe falls down, but I'm telling you how to stand back up, right? What I'm saying to do is to flip-flop those two ratios. Spend 10% of your time creating that speech, and maybe it takes the same 5 to 7 hours, but then go and deliver that same exact speech, the same exact 5 to 7 minute speech. Don't deliver it once. Deliver it at every single Toastmasters in your area. That you can go as a visitor and sign up to speak, and sometimes you have to wait to get on the schedule. Go and deliver that speech 90%, right? Flip-flop the ratio. So now you're spending 90% of your time speaking. You can also speak at Rotaries for free. You can speak at Kiwanis Club, Kiwanis, right? These are service organizations that are going to have usually retired, but sometimes people that are still in the workforce, anywhere from 30s to 80s. And a lot of times professional people in the audience that you can go and speak to and practice your speech. You want to deliver your speech so many times so that now you become a master storyteller. Right?
I love
All
that.
the tips and guidance I'm going to give you is going to help you implement new things, but ultimately you're never going to transform and become a master world-class storyteller if you don't put in the reps. You got to get in the gym, right?
Everything, right? If you want to get to Carnegie Hall, you know what you need to do, right? So Larry is watching us, and Neville is watching us, and Mia is watching us. Guys, if you actually want to join, this is the link. We're going to have you participate in about 10 to 15 minutes. So one of the other things that you have in your tips is storytelling in the present time. And I'm going to ask you about that, but I want to, since we're flipping things around, I would really love to talk about this. Everybody loves the hero story, right? Like, I sucked, this happened, now I'm the hero, right? Yeah. But then you have two flips for that. One, Donald Miller says you don't want to be the hero because you cannot be the hero in your audience's story. You have to be the guide, the Sherpa, right? So that kind of changes it a little bit, even though the Sherpa still has their own hero story. But for a lot of people who are in the journey still, who haven't gotten to that hero moment yet, who are still, kind of like grinding it, how would they tell their story without sounding whining and complaining and depressed and bringing everybody down of like, I called 10 people today and nobody returned my calls. Tomorrow is going to be a fantastic day, right? Like, how do you tell a story while you're still on the journey and not necessarily at the peak of your journey, if you will?
Great question, Yvette. I love it. We're bobbing and weaving here. We are. Questions. I love it. All right. So number one thing I would say, and you might want to write this down as well, is you've got to include your audience in the journey. You've got to include your audience in the journey. You have to, and there's so many ways. I train some speakers to become world-class speakers, and I work with them one-on-one and teach them how you want your speech to be, whether you're online or whether you're in person, you want it the audience to experience it like this. Like you're pulling up in a car, and the last thing you want your audience to feel like is they're standing on the side of the road, and all of a sudden you drive by and it's just like, and then you drive right by and they're like, oh, that was a cool car that drove by.
Yeah.
That's not how you want your speeches to go, or how you want your interactions online to go. You want it to go like this. You want it to go like you're driving your car, they're all on the side of the road, and you pull up in your car, and there's so many ways that you can get them to decide to open that door. And then you get them to decide to peek in the car and look around and look at you, and then you want to get it to the point where they feel comfortable enough to get in that car with you. And that's what the gentleman you just referenced is talking about you being the guide, right? And you getting into, them getting into the car. Now you're driving, and now they're in the car with you. You're including them in your journey. And I'm going to share with you in a moment how one of the ways you can do that. There's a ton of them. I'm going to share a couple right now. But when you really develop mastery, Ifat, is when you're not the driver anymore. When literally you've built so much rapport with that audience, and you've really made it about them. You've shifted the concern from you over to what's in the best interest of my audience. How can I really make this feel like it's their journey? And now all of a sudden they're in the driver's seat, and you become the person who's just directing this. We're going to go over here now. Check this out. We're going to go over here now. That's where you're truly the guide, when they actually feel like they're the driver.
You're giving me chills, which is very, not very common, but it's fantastic. I love that. Most of our stuff, we having so many conversations with all experts, and I think people who reach a certain level in their profession and in their communication and in their business start realizing that it's not about you, right? It's never about you, which is a good thing, right? Because even the bad stuff that comes, never about you, right? The negative comments, never about you. It's always about the audience. And so one of the biggest challenges is like tapping into that audience brain, if you will, and going like, what that brain is looking for? What are they interested in? And do they even have time to listen to my story? I think everybody who's watching it right now going like, I have a fantastic story, but who cares?
So I'm going to speak to that, and I want to give your audience members, and definitely, think of some questions you can ask us when we go live here in a little bit for you to come on. But I want to give you an example right now of what you can do. So let's say your content is around unlocking your full potential. My full keynote speech is called Reigniting Your Human Spirit. I deliver it all around the world, and it's all about helping people really get inspired and get clear about where they are right now, and they get clear about where they want to go, and then they get clear about what's stopping them. And 9 times out of 10, it's a limiting belief, right? It's something in their mind that's clouding their vision. It's giving them this sort of almost like you have glasses on, like a clouded view of what's possible, a clouded view of who they are, a clouded view of what's available to them. And ultimately, I show them how to unlock their full potential, how to identify, create awareness around those beliefs, and then annihilate them. All right? So if that's my topic, I want to get my audience teed up to want to listen to that topic. Because one of the biggest mistakes people make is, especially if you have something you're really passionate about, like at one of the Toastmasters I used to go to, there was a lot of people that were into personal growth and development, into entrepreneurship. And what they would do is they'd get up there. Oh my goodness, so many ideas are coming to me. I'm going to just share as much as I can here all at the same time. One of the biggest challenges that people do is they write their speech like they're writing a book. Write that down. Don't write your speech like you're writing a book, very linearly. Yeah. It's boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. Because then when you get up there and you're actually going to share it, it comes across like you're talking at the audience. And nobody wants to get talked to, right? Think about it when you've been in the audience and you feel like the speaker's talking at you.
Preacher. Like I call it like the preacher thing, right?
Exactly. So that we do not want to do that. So don't write your talks like you're writing a book. And the other beautiful thing about why storytelling is so powerful, you want to tell about 70% stories and 30% facts. This is going to bring the weight right off your shoulders, especially if you have to do a keynote speech, 20, 30, hour long, it's easier to tell stories than it is to remember facts.
Yeah.
Right? You know your stories. It's easy. Once you get better, you got to obviously become world class at telling a story, but it's a lot easier to get up there and just remember what your story is because you know what your story is.
Yeah.
But telling facts is a lot harder. So I got a little sidetracked there. I'm going to come back to what you can do to include your audience in the journey and ultimately have them become the driver and you're the guide.
So when you're talking about that, Clinton, include them in the journey. So a lot of people are looking at, okay, I'm sharing my story. How do I include my audience? Is it specific words of imagine what time when you were born and I don't know, someone flicked you and you start crying? Like, is that the kind of inclusion that you're talking about, or is it something else?
That is definitely an example. There's a lot of ways you can do that. We don't have, obviously, a lot of time to go through all of them. There's literally probably hundreds. But one of the ways you can do in the beginning is you want to ask questions, right? You want to ask questions. I have a whole way that I teach the folks that I work with on how to start off the beginning of their speech. How to immediately build rapport, how to immediately get a laugh. You want to get a laugh like every 30 seconds, and you want to get one within about the first 5 to 10 seconds of being on stage. That's rule number 1. So any way you can do that when you're on video as well. You can get your audience a little chuckle, even if it's just a smile. Within 10 seconds, you're golden. And then that gains their attention. That's one of the ways to get their attention. But you want to ask them questions, and you want to ask them questions that relate to them. That also ties into your content. Let me give you an example. In my speech, I talk about obviously limiting beliefs, and I share a quote by Morpheus from The Matrix, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Mine too.
He says, "We're all prisoners of our own mind." Right? What's he talking about? He's talking about our limiting beliefs. And I go on to tell a story, a really funny story about how I got told when I was a little kid that I was a skinny kid with a big head. All right. And now everyone's gonna be looking at my big dome here. Trust me, like I'm okay now. Like it's a big, I've grown into it a little bit, but man, growing up a 12-year-old kid, 12-year-old body with a 30-year-old head is not a good look. Okay. So I struggled with that, and I tell this story. Sorry, I'm like resisting going into storytelling mode here.
Please don't. I mean, we all want to hear stories. And actually what's really nice, because I'm catching myself listening to you and going like, ooh, that's a story. Ooh, that's a story. Ooh, that's a story. And I love, guys, while you're watching this, see if you can do the same thing. Like every time Clinton is moving between like the story and the actual teaching lesson, the value, see if you can notice that flip. So John Nothing in YouTube says, haha, evil laugh, Joker's laugh. So nice, the joke is working.
Awesome. So yeah, we want to ask questions in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
We want to ask questions. We want to ask questions like, how many of you out there can think of a time where you really, really, really wanted to be something? You really wanted to do something, or you really wanted to have something, but fear and doubt crept in and you didn't take action. Show of hands. How many out there can think of a time right now? Oh, everybody got one? Okay, write that down. Go ahead, just take like 10 seconds to write like one word down that really encapsulates that thing you wanted to be, do, or have, but fear and doubt crept in. Go ahead and basically give them a couple seconds to do that, right? Do you realize that I just used a lot of contrast there as well? Show of hands, right? I'm giving verbal commands.
Right.
I'm also sharing information. I'm
You're
asking
also moving.
questions. They're writing down, right? I'm varying my tonality, so it's contrast, right?
Yeah.
Huge. So now they, in their mind, have something that's relevant to them. Now you've started to get them to open the car door. And they're like, wait a minute, maybe there's something for me in here. Like maybe he's not just gonna sit up there and like try to make me laugh or sit up there and give me, preach at me. Maybe there's something in this for me. So that's just one example of how you can start to open the door to really get them to get into that car and consider sitting in that car with you.
I love that. And it's so important, the questions that we ask. Someone, I can't remember, one of my buddies said, the quality of your life is the quality of the questions that you ask, not just others, but also yourself, right? And there was like a lot of women who want to lose weight. They go like, why can't I lose weight? Why can't I lose weight? Well, then it will give you, you know, all the reasons why you are not losing weight. But if you change the question to, how come I'm losing weight so easily? How come I don't even have to go to the gym and, you know, stuff happens? Things change based on the questions. So I love how you're using questions, weaving them into the story to kind of like frame your story and frame the mindset of your audience to where you want to take them. So then you said tip number 2 was tell stories in the present tense. How do you do that without, you know, how do you share your past experience in the present tense?
That's the $1 million question. And really,
I got many of those.
It was a $5,000 question for me. That's literally, I paid $5,000 to get the answer to that question. And I'm going to share that with your audience right now. But before I do that, I want to add one little piggyback on that last thing that we talked about.
Yeah.
Once you've asked them to write down what it was that was important to them, right? Now you can anchor back to that for the whole rest of the speech, right? That whole rest of the speech. Now you're doing what you said. You're having them future cache. You're like, all right, imagine what it would be like if the next time you have that thing that you think about that you want to be, do, or have, that you don't allow limiting beliefs to creep in. What's that going to be like for you, right? And then as the speech goes on, I actually ask them to, and we go through exercises for them to discover what are their limiting beliefs. Like really, like let's create some awareness around them. Yeah. Because much like shifting our beliefs, the same thing goes with becoming a better speaker on video or in person. We've got to have the awareness first, right? And that's where having a coach is obviously really important to help give you the awareness of where you're falling down, where you're falling short. And then you've got to have the courage. So this is the thing to write down here as well. These are the steps to mastery, to becoming a world-class speaker. You've got to have awareness. First and foremost, if you don't have awareness, you're just going to keep doing the same thing. And then you've got to have the courage. You got to have the courage to get out there and put in the reps, get on stages, try something new, right? When that comedian gave me all these different jokes to try, I was like, are you sure? He's like, just do it. I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And they worked, right? They worked, every single one, except one joke didn't work, and that was because I wasn't confident in the delivery.
Yeah.
Bottom line, period. It was all me. But everything else worked. So courage is number 2. And then number 3, once you actually have the courage to implement, right, then you start to develop confidence, because you're going to notice how you're going to get more likes on your videos, or you're going to get more reactions, or more in if you're speaking to an audience, you're going to get more connection. You're going to get more engagement, right? Raising their hands, doing what it is that you're asking them to do. You're going to get more people coming up to you at the end and saying, you know, I really feel like your speech today was really written for me. And that's when you know you've gotten to the world-class level of storytelling. And then it's really rinse and repeat of those first 3 steps of awareness, courage, builds confidence. Awareness, courage to implement, confidence. And as you continue to do that and get the reps in, get the reps in, get the reps in, now you're starting to develop mastery. And then you become a world-class speaker. Now, I'm going to go into your question now. I know I just gave a little extra content there, but your question was, how do we deliver stories in the present tense, and why should we be doing that?
Yeah.
Well, let me speak to that now. Like I said, I literally paid a National Speaker Association Hall of Fame speaker $5,000 for this. Just one piece of advice I'm going to give it to you right now, and really we've already given you the punchline. It's tell stories in the present tense. There are people that are making 10,000 plus per speech that some of them aren't even doing this. When you do this, you're going to stand out a head and shoulders above anyone, because most importantly, your audience is going to be right there beside you in the car. And eventually, as you implement more of the steps that I share with my students, they're going to actually be the driver. So how do we do that? I'm going to give you an example. So here I am. I'm in Rio de Janeiro. It's the second summer of my graduate school experience. It's like 80 plus degrees out, and I'm getting in this little tram. I'm like sweating, and I'm going up this tram to see what most would call a tourist trap. It's called Corcovado. It's a tourist attraction. And I finally get up there, and I look out, and I see the wonderfully artistic black and white sidewalks that the beaches in Rio are known for from its Portuguese heritage. I see the white sandy beaches of Ipanema and Copacabana. And then I look out into the ocean and I see this enormous mountain emerging from the water called Pau do Açúcar. I fix my attention over here and I notice the massive disparity between the richness and beauty of the beach area and these little shanty towns called favelas just littered across the top of the mountain. I turn around and I walk over to the main attraction and I look up and it seems to be 1,000 miles high. All right, and I keep going from there.
I love this. This is so great because I'm like, and then what? And then what?
Were you not right there with me? Tell me, were you right there with me?
I am, because also I was in Brazil and I was like, that was. But I love it because you're pointing to the sidewalks and the word that I cannot pronounce correctly in English, the beach.
The beach.
And all this stuff, and I was like, the Corcovado at the top of the mountain and stuff. I was like, oh yeah, I totally can see it. I love that. So you're taking a past story, something that happened to you, and you're telling it as if you're there now, right now.
Yes, and it's so vital to do that because people don't want to hear old news.
Yeah.
Right? When somebody comes up to you, if you had the choice to talk to somebody that's going to tell you a story that happened like a week ago, or something that's happening to them right now, better yet, going along with them on the journey, which one are you going to choose? I mean, it's not rocket science. So anytime you're going to use the word was or I went or any of those past tense, it's old news. Like, you can still be a good storyteller, but you will never become a world-class storyteller and ultimately a world-class speaker or presenter, whether you're on video or on stage, if you're not telling stories in the present tense. So folks, I know that might sound goofy. It might not sound like, wow, that's like magical. But when you've been on hundreds of stages like I have, and you've literally spoken in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and you've gotten the reactions, the contrast, the comparison of when I wasn't doing this to when now I am doing this, it's night and day. It's 1,000% night and day. So mark my words, write that down, try it. It sounds easy. Not, all right? It's not at all. It's going to take a lot of practice. It's going to take some guidance. It's going to take some coaching, but you can do it. And when you do it, you become a world-class speaker.
And guys, like, just try that in your next few social blogs or your next few videos, right? Take the next 5-10 minutes if you jump on live video, or if you're creating a video, or you're writing a social blog, or you're writing an email. Because I can already, think of a few emails that I wrote that was like, oh, yesterday we did blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what if I change that to, I remember the time when XYZ, called me about, no, so that's also in the past, right? So darn it, see, it's not that easy.
Yeah, and it's good to know that even when you're telling stories, you can pop out once in a while and go to the past tense, especially when you're doing setup. But when you're in it and you're telling a juicy story, you want to be in the present tense as much as possible. And even I slip out from time to time. Sometimes I do it intentionally, but when you're in it, man, when you're telling stories, I want to share another thing about why storytelling is so important. And it's this. When you're telling stories, have you ever noticed that people lean in? Now, this is more of a live when you're face-to-face. Mm-hmm. People lean in. You've done this. Yeah. Think about it when you're a little kid, or even when you're not. When you tell stories or someone's telling you a story, you lean in. Right? It just happens. And what's happening is, and there's been studies that show this, when you're not telling a story and you're telling facts, you have brainwaves. I'm going to give you some of the science behind this. You have a brainwave that's going like this. And your audience, when you're telling facts, everybody pay attention here. When you're telling facts, their brainwaves are going like this. So you're not in sync. As soon as you start telling a story, your brainwaves and the brainwaves of your audience immediately sync up. Wow. It was like, when I got that, like, that's the actual science behind it. So literally, like, no kidding, when you tell stories, people are automatically going to listen to you more. You're going to get their attention more. Okay? And there's 3 kinds of stories I want to share right now. There's more than 3, but I'm going to share with you 3 really quick because it popped in my head. You can tell a full-on story like I did. And they're not always that colorful, although you want to make them as colorful as possible. Notice how I said the white sandy beaches. I talked about this enormous mountain emerging from the water. I might have said it was green. I don't know if I did or not. Right? You want to give color, commentary, the sweat, right? Everything. It's 80 degrees, right? So people can feel it, smell it, touch it, taste it. You're hitting all their senses. That's a full-on story. And there's variations of that kind of story. You could also tell, I still call this a story, even though it's not technically a story. A lot of the same elements apply. Things like if you're telling like a testimonial. This is why when you're in sales or you're marketing something for your services, if any of you have any services you're providing online or whatever your business is, when you share stories of testimonials, especially when they're testimonials of people that are similar to your audience. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm selling something that's really appealing to single moms that are in their 40s that have 3 kids, right? I'm going to share a story of another single mom that has, kids and is working, right? It's going to be something relatable. So that's an example of telling a story, right? It's not a full-on story. And again, this is another thing about stories. They're not always about you, right? I tell a story about Nelson Mandela in my speech. I tell some other stories about other people, right? It's not always about you. It's not always your story. But are stories that people can relate to. So we've got the big stories, and then we've got the testimonials or case studies, which is another example of a story. And then another even smaller example on a micro level are things like not similes, but metaphors. Mm-hmm. Right? Metaphors, it's another example of a story. It just so happens to be it's only a sentence long. Right? It's not a story in traditional sense, but a lot of the same rules apply. And those are ways that you can infuse storytelling in the age of live video to make it more colorful, to maintain the attention of your audience that only has 8 seconds before they're doing something else or thinking about their laundry list of things they need to do.
Totally. Mia Voss is saying legit wow on the brainwave story. Yeah, that is really fascinating. And it always reminds me, when you try to talk to kids, if you just tell them stuff, it doesn't work. But if you go like, hey, and you kind of get them involved with your words, like, hey, what do you think, and blah, blah, then they're a little bit more included, right? And you can totally see their enthusiasm going up. Yeah. And we're all kids, aren't we? Like, bottom line. So
people don't want to be told facts. Even you could have people in your audience that love what you do. Maybe you're a blogger or a vlogger on something, a topic. People get burned out on content. One of the first things a Hall of Fame speaker told me when they saw one of my first speeches several years ago, they said, Clinton, go back home and cut out 50 to 70% of your content.
Ouch.
I was like, what? What? I'm like, I'm proud of my content. And you know what you can do with that content though, guys and gals? Use that content to create a product. Write a book, right? That's what the content's for. People want to hear stories.
Yeah. It's totally true. And there's so much, guys, if you just look online and just do a little bit of a search for storytelling in marketing, storytelling in sales, storytelling in anything that you're going to put around there. This is why people go camping, right? Just to sit around the fireplace and the fire and tell stories, right? Scary stories, funny stories, loving stories. So Clinton has about 7 of these tips that you guys can get right now if you want to, that helped him get from 0 to 10,000 completely free right there on the website that you just saw disappear. Not this one, this one. So if you head over to imthatgeek.com/live, you will see this type, it's always in reverse, this type of banner, and you can click on it and just, for free, download his 7 steps. So we covered 3 of them today, 2 of them already. 1, facts, tell, stories, sell. So drop the facts, just dive into stories. The second one was tell everything in the present tense, which, as you just saw me try, a little bit of difficult. You might want a coach for that. And the third one was the power of 3. So let's dive into the power of 3.
Yes, the power of 3. Now, I don't have the science behind this one, but I do have years of history and thousands of hours on stage and thousands of audience members. And of course, tons of coaches that have also taught me this as well. So the power of 3, I don't know what it is, but I believe even in some books like the Bible, for example, a lot of things are written in 3s, and a lot of books like that type of book out there, the historical books, with all this ancient wisdom and principles, things are in 3s. I don't know what it is, but our brains like to receive information in 3.
You know what's really funny? Like, I'm going to stop you there for a second.
Yeah.
And even when you're talking about photo composition, right? We have like lower thirds, which is this one is a lower third. It's 3. When you are taking a good photo, right, you divide the screens and then you position the image right in the third. So you're totally right. Like there's so many places where 3 kind of like symmetry and imagination and many other things are jumping in. So use 3.
Yeah, there are some power numbers. 3 and also 7 is another powerful one. That's why it's the top 7 steps or the top 7 tips to becoming a world-class presenter. Definitely get that. It's 100% free. Again, it's I'mThatGeek.com/live. Get it. All right, so telling in the power of 3. You want to use the power of 3. I want to give you an example, EFAT, and everyone online right now, of the power of 3 inside of a story. That's when it gets like juicy. All right. So I'm telling this story about how I meet this girl. I'm in the 7th grade. I'm going to jump in and out of this story. I won't tell you the whole story because it's a longer story. But ultimately,
wait. That was just a tease right now.
I know, it's a cliffhanger.
It was.
There are ways to get access to my entire keynote speech, but just get the tips and we'll talk. Right? You want to join my speaker posse online as well. So, all right. So basically, I meet this girl. She's in the 7th grade. Her name's Amy Powers. She's in the 8th grade, and she's beautiful. Like, think like J-Lo meets Jessica Alba meets like, I don't know, whoever else you think is beautiful, all rolled up into a little 8th grader, right? That's her. That's Amy Powers. And one day I decide I want to tell her that she's beautiful. And I'm going to skip past the story here. Ultimately, at the end of the day, she tells me I'm a skinny kid with a big head. That I kind of have a big
that was
head.
That girl?
Yeah, that was the girl. I know. So I go through the whole rest of my life believing that. And this limiting belief, which we all have, by the way, we all have limiting beliefs. I highly encourage you to start to become aware of, just start to try on the idea that you might have a limiting belief that's really giving you your view of everything that you see, yourself, your opportunities, the world at large as well. Anyways, so I go through and I have this belief that I can't gain weight. That's the subsequent limiting belief that was buried in my subconscious. It's like a fish in water. It's like the fish doesn't know that it's in water, right? It's just what's so. That's how deep our limiting beliefs are. It's just what's so. It's like, that's just the fact. I couldn't gain weight until I meet this guy named Pierre. Now, Pierre is this hulking man from Kigali, Rwanda. This guy is like the African Adonis. He is chiseled. I mean, his muscles have muscles, okay? You get the picture?
Yeah.
And he's a trainer. So I go in one day and I start to tell him I want to gain 25 pounds that year. And immediately comes spilling out of my mouth all the reasons why I can't do it. All the excuses why it's not possible for me to gain weight, right? I'm going to jump back out of the story. I keep going back into it. I can't resist. So he basically tells me what I need to do. He says, eat your face off, work out 5 times a week, never be hungry. Okay?
Okay.
What I say, guys? Eat your face off, work out 5 times a week, never be hungry. How many are there? There's 3, right?
Yeah.
And there's also, this is like that movie Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio where he's in his dream and he goes back into a dream inside of a dream. This is like the Inception power of 3 inside of a power of 3. Because it's eat your face off, work out 5 times a week, never be hungry, right? So it's like ninja style power of 3 inside of a power of 3. And then guess how many times I come back to him and his voice telling me to eat your face off, work out 5 times a week, never be hungry inside of the story. 3 times.
3 times, yeah.
Guess how many times I check in inside of my story and talk about my results and how much I've gained and 3 times, right?
Yeah.
I lace in the power of 3 throughout my entire speech, right? In the beginning, you can do it intentionally. If you're just getting started, if you're just doing some vlogs online or doing some lives, or you're using EFAT's platform, or maybe you're speaking live, like out there in person. Just infuse them into your stories, infuse them into your speeches. You can do it with tips as well, right?
Yeah.
You can give them the 3 tips. So you can do that, but once you become a master at it, then you just start doing it naturally, right? I've created recently the International Speakers Institute, where we help, we really bring about these elite speakers around the world. We provide them with tools, training, and experiences to connect them with other speakers from all around the world. Do you see how I just did that again?
Yeah,
Tools, training, and experiences. I just made that up right now. But that's the power of 3 that you can utilize when you're talking about anything that you want your audience to really get, because they're going to receive it. They're going to be like, oh, good. And here's another reason why I think scientifically, if you give somebody 3 things, they can usually remember 3. If you give them 4, 5, or 10, they're going to probably remember what? The first one?
And the last one.
Probably the last one.
Yeah.
And maybe one in the middle. And that's it.
So and that would 3. Be 3. Wouldn't that be 3? That would remember the first, the last, and the middle.
Exactly.
So it's fantastic. So Kathy Mason just said, thank you for this great content on storytelling. I just downloaded your sheet. There's some words I cannot say in English.
Yeah, it's a cheat sheet.
It's a cheat sheet. There you go.
It's my speaker cheat sheet. Top 7 tips to help you go from wherever you're at right now to becoming world class. Full disclosure though, you've got to put in the reps.
Yeah.
You're not going to read the content and be like, oh, I'm world class. Woo! Clinton said so. No, you've got to put in the reps.
And so let's talk about that for a second, because the cheat sheet that she's talking about is that one. Yep. That one. There we go. That one. If you want to grab that one, I'm That Geek.com/live. And the reps, you have a group, the Speakers Posse, right? You want to tell people about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So the Speaker Posse, when you get the tips, I will lead you right to the Speaker Posse. It's on Facebook. It's a free group that you can join, and it's a collective, an online collective of some of the top speakers from all around the world. Currently, that is a free community, so jump in there, and it'll be free for you as long as you're in it once you get in today. So again, it's Speaker Posse, and it's on the Facebook. You can go to speakerposse.com and get there, but get the tips on I'mThatGeek.com/live, and I lead you right to the Speaker Posse as well, so you can join for free.
So what we were talking about, guys, is 7 tips to take you from 0 to a keynote speaker, right? 10,000 keynote speaker. But the entire point of our conversation today is how to become a master storyteller. Because if you have a message, whatever it is, whether it's like inspirational, whether it's, for your business, whether it's for your kids, relationships, whatever it is, if you have a message, you need to know how to communicate that. And so we dived a little bit into the 3 things. The 3 things that you need to do. 1, facts tell, story tells. Facts sell, stories tell. So, no, I messed it up. Facts tell, stories tell.
You got it.
Do it in the present tense, and the power of 3. Now, there are 7 more steps, but that you can download right now. But let's talk a little bit about your journey from 0 to 10,000, because I'm sure that did not happen overnight, and that did not happen just because you became a massive, fantastic world-class storyteller. That there was a little bit more that goes into that, right? We cannot just wake up tomorrow, start going to Toastmasters and command high-paying fees. There's a little bit of the strategy and some tactics behind it. So tell me about that journey a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely do work with folks that I train on this whole process of booking gigs, right? Because that's the number 1 thing. You've got to get out there and put in the reps. Yep. But using these top 7 tips, and I actually pack in more than 7, you actually get, when you start doing these top 7 tips, you're going to start to develop some sort of mastery. And I literally use these top 7 tips to go from 0 to making $10,000 per speech in under 17 months as a part-time speaker. But that doesn't mean I spoke once a month.
Yeah.
That means in some weeks, I spoke 4 times, right? And I'll show you how to do that, where you can literally get booked at different groups like Toastmasters, Kiwanis, Rotaries, etc. You've got to get on stages. Bottom line, you've got to get on stages. I also teach how to actually ask for referrals. A bonus tip I'll give you right now is, one of my coaches always says this, and I kind of chuckle when he says it, because it's a little cheesy and campy, but you know what? I'd rather be cheesy and be a world-class speaker than not.
Yep.
Right? So you've got to ASK to GET, baby. So write that down. You've got to ASK to GET. You've got to ask to get. So every single time I speak, I share my vision and I ask for what it is that I want. I want referrals, right? Mm-hmm. And the only way you can do that is by building enough rapport on the front end, right? So that they're like, yes, I want to help you because you helped me so much. I was in the driver's seat the whole speech. You were my guide. You got me thinking about what's important to me in my life, right? You got me thinking about what action steps I'm going to take right now in my life. I want to help you. So you've got to do that. If you don't ask for referrals, if you don't build a rapport, you don't have the ability to build that rapport, and you need to know the right time and place inside of your speech to ask for referrals. Yeah. Guess where it's not?
At the beginning.
It's not at the beginning, and it's not at the end, because that's what they're going to remember, and then they'll walk away with, oh, they just showed up here to ask me for something. No, and it's not right in the middle either. There's a specific spot where you want to ask for referrals. So that's one of the biggest things I did is every single time I got on stage, and in some cases I was getting on 4 and 5 stages in a week, right? I would always ask for referrals and do it in a certain way so that it comes off as elegant, right?
There you go.
And that's literally, I was speaking in England in April, and it was a paid speech, and I went over there and they flew me over to speak at this big entrepreneur conference. It's one of the places I speak at a lot, to come in at the end and sort of inspire the troops and also help them to realize that what's predictable is they're going to leave and not implement anything. Yeah. Right? That all the great content they learned for the last 3 days. So they bring me in because they know that I have a way for them to get to really look at what's going to stop them for the limiting beliefs, so they take action. And anyways, I did the specific way. I have a specific script that I use as well around how to ask for referrals. And the gentleman who was leading the whole event, it was his event, he comes up to me at the end in his British accent. He's like, Clinton, I can't do the British accent. He's like, Clinton, that was so elegant. He's like, that was so elegant how you asked for referrals. He loved it. So some people are like, oh, I don't want to ask for referrals. They're not going to like, the audience isn't going to like it, or the person that put on the event's not going to like it. It was elegant, baby. So that was one of the biggest things, putting in the reps, right, getting on stages and asking for referrals, and then continually implementing, hiring coaches. Here's the steps. Get on stages, ask for referrals, hire a coach, have somebody that can help you, guide you, right? And have the courage to implement what they're telling you, to implement. Because as you do that, your confidence rises. You start to tell stories better. You start to give your content better. You start to ask for referrals better. You start to just be more natural on stage, because ultimately that's what people are buying, if you will, even if you're not selling anything, is they're buying who you're being. Mm-hmm. They're not buying the words coming out of your mouth. They don't even, there's actually a study that's been done. I know I'm going to stop. I know you want to rein me in here in a second. This is good stuff, right?
Yeah.
So people don't even really hear the words you say. Now, there's been studies, and there's been studies that have been debunked and all that, so I'm not going to give actual stats, but ultimately the stats go something like this. First of all, about 75% of statistics are made up on the spot.
Right. Yeah.
Just kidding. But ultimately, the vast majority of the communication that's delivered, this is important, especially if you're on video. You're doing video communication and live as well. But the vast amount of the communication that's actually received by your audience is in who you're being.
Yeah.
Right? It's the tonality of your voice. It's your gestures, your body language, right? Your eye contact, your smiles, right? It's how you're talking. It's using contrast.
And you know what? This is why I love live video, because you cannot fake it in live video, right? Like your energy comes out.
Only 7% of what's actually received are the words.
Yep.
The words only account for 7%. So it almost doesn't matter what you're saying. It matters.
As long as you're saying it enthusiastically, everybody's going to be like, okay, I want some of that.
Well, you've just got to become world class, right?
There you
go. You got to put in the work and become world class.
Yeah. And
get on stages.
I was actually, one of my favorite ways, I can't remember who told me that, but they said, don't keep me a secret, right? So that's a great way to ask for referrals. Like, just don't keep me a secret. If you think this is great, tell other people about that. So there's so many great ways to do this. I think what's really interesting is that when we move from one-on-one or in-person interactions to the online or to the business or to the marketing or the selling and stuff, we forget that we're human, and everybody else that is interacting with us is human as well. And nobody wants to be sold, right? Everybody loves to buy. Hey, let's go shopping. But nobody wants to be sold. And what you're sharing right now is a way to get them into your world and kind of crave what you have, so that they come into you and like, okay, let's go shopping with Ifat, let's go shopping with Clinton, let's go shopping with Katie, right? That's what you want. You want people to be like, hey, I'm going to go do some shopping over there because it's fantastic. So,
can I speak to that as well?
Yeah, please.
I want to speak to that because so many people come up to me because of the topic of my speech, reigniting your human spirit. I take people from stuck to stoked in their life and business, right? So many people are just walking around with their proverbial pilot light out, right? They're either lost, they're confused, they don't know what they want, or maybe they know what they want, but they don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
And so many people ask me, how do I find my purpose, right? I think you'd probably agree. There's a lot of people out there that are looking for their purpose. They're looking for more meaning in what it is that they do. And a lot of times people become entrepreneurs or do things online with video because they want to have a better lifestyle and they want to fulfill on some sort of purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that we all have a story to share. We all have a story to provide value to other people. And what I say when people come up to me and say, I'm looking for my purpose, how do I find it? I say, if you're looking for your purpose, stop. Because it will be waiting for you when you start doing the things that you love. Right? It'll be waiting for you when you start doing the things that you love. And I'm also a firm believer that we all actually have the same purpose. We have the same purpose. And they have different color variations, right? Different details in each one. But ultimately, I believe, this is my belief, that our purpose is to be in service to others. Find ways to be in service to others inside of our greatest gift. Right? Inside of our greatest gift. So discover what our greatest gift is. Go do the things that we love, and our purpose will be revealed to us, the details of it, right? And then find ways to be in service to other people while we're inside of our greatest gift. And when we do that on stage, when we do that over video, man, that's sexy. That's attractive. I don't mean sexy in a sexual way. I mean, people want that.
Yep.
I'm a firm believer that we're all on this planet for that purpose, to be in service to others inside of our greatest gift. And when they see that you found it for yourself through your videos, through your passion, your inspiration from stage, people want that too. And when you find ways to include them in your journey and make them the driver of the car, now it's their journey. Now they're like, I can do this.
Yeah.
Right? That's how you inspire people. That's how you move people to take action around whatever is important to you. Make it important to them first.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I think, one of the things is because of social media and because of all the access that we have to everything out there, there's so many like overnight false, the smoke and mirrors of marketing. Everything like, look at me, I just put up this one web page and now I'm a millionaire. We all know it doesn't happen like that, but all you see all day long is success in front of you. And so it's very easy to go like, well, I've tried, it doesn't work for me, I'm the failure, I'm the loser, everybody else have it and I don't. And it's very important to be surrounded by people who, tell it as it is, there's no smoke and mirrors, everybody's going on the same journey. And if you are the person who knows a way out, right, that just loves showing people like, this is exactly what Clinton was doing today. Here are the things that you need to do if you want to get here, right? And let me show you how to do it. Do this, do this, do this, right? 3 things. If you can do that and you're impacting so many people on your journey, on their journey, you're just basically spreading happiness and it ripples, right? And those ripples will just give you everything that you need in return. So I totally agree with you. There's like a human, what I think is like missing in social media is the human element. We kind of like forgot the social in the, now we're in the marketing. We forgot the whole human side of things. But once you tap into that, whether online, whether on stage, whether in your conversations, wherever it is, once you tap into that human element and you have it because you're human, right? Then everything will happen. It's fantastic. You don't have to do anything else. And I really love the fact that you're saying, don't look for your mission. Just do the things you love. It'll come to you. Because it's true, right? For most successful people, they did not go like, Bill Gates did not go like, how I'm going to invent, the app iPhone, right? Like it was never even in his mind, right? Or not Bill Gates. That was, what's his name?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Thank you. Bill Gates was like Windows, right?
Yes.
Confusing my heroes. But same thing, right? Or Elon Musk was like, okay, I can't send money online. How am I going to do that? PayPal. right? But there's so many things where people are coming like, okay, this is not working. How do I fix it? And they get so passionate about fixing it for themselves. And then other people go like, ooh, I want what she has. The best example is when Harry met Sally, right? He's like, I just want what she has.
That's funny. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine, right? So be that enthusiastic, energetic person, and everybody will just dive into you. So Clinton, this was fantastic. Kathy says, bonus, ask to get. So don't forget to ask for whatever you want. The important part behind it is know what you want so you can ask for it, right? And if you don't know, ask someone else, right? Get a mentor, join a group, dive into like the Speaker's Posse with Clinton. It's on Facebook. Download the 7 tips right here and start taking action on them. Do something that can move the needle just a little bit and give you that just a little bit of confidence so you can take it, move it a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Anything else, Clinton, before we wrap up? Because this was fantastic.
I would say that just commit to the journey. Whatever your journey is, commit to discovering more about who you are, right? Commit to discovering and creating more awareness. Because when you have more awareness of who you are, right, and where you are right now, and you have a vision for where you want to go, if you don't have that, like you're just kind of going through life plodding along. But when you get really clear about what are your gifts and talents, what are your passions, what are those things you love, right, and you start taking action around them, then you start to get committed. You move to step 2. Awareness is step 1. This is another model that I have. Awareness is step 1. Step 2 is a commitment to growth, a commitment to lifelong learning and discovery about yourself. And when you start to do that, man, opportunities, new awarenesses start to arise. And then from there, now we start to find ways to be in service to others inside of our greatest gift. And man, that's what we're all here for. That's what, when you wake up and you just love life and you're out to create a difference for other people, doing something you love, come on now. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
It's true.
Right? So take action. Think big, say yes, and take action. That's what I'm going to do.
Because on your deathbed, you would not be sorry that you didn't, there's still 5 emails in your inbox that you didn't answer. You'll be amazed by the relationships and the people that you touched. So make that your legacy, right? And start by telling good stories. So thank you so much, Clinton. This was great. I see many comments. Leland is here saying hi, and he goes like mentorship. So again, if you guys want to join a group of mentorship, follow Clinton, join him in the Speaker's Posse, and you'll have all that information once you grab this cheat sheet right there. So thanks again. Have a fantastic day, fantastic weekend, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you all. Bye for now.